because it's not for the first year that we have been discussing the issues of developing Buddhist education. Uh, Please take your seats, dear colleagues. I would like to draw your attention and I would like to set you in the mood of business-like discussion. First of all, we have deep traditions of Buddhist religious tradition, education in Russia. We have Buddhist academies, universities. We have them among participants today. We have very well developed schools of Buddhology based on the Kalmyk University, Burat State University, Tuvan State University, and the presidents, directors of these universities are here today. We also have major schools of Buddhology in St. Petersburg University, Moscow University. Unfortunately, these schools have not been united for a very long time, and colleagues today will share about the serious changes, serious events in the sphere of Buddhist education. For the first time this year, with the support of Buddhist Foundation, on the support of Buddhist education and research, which I am the head of, we started supporting and financing new programs of teaching Buddhist philosophy in Russian universities. This is the very first time in decades of in many years of developing Russian and even Soviet education. This is a huge breakthrough. Hopefully, a year later already, Buddhist philosophy will be a special subject, a special course, maybe even bachelor's and master's programs. Today, we are developing our contacts, establishing contacts with many Buddhist organizations in China, in Hong Kong, Thailand, India, many other parts of the world. This is a new push for development. But what is mostly important, today I would like to discuss which way, which direction should Buddhist education take, how we can complement the existing programs for Buddhist education, and what are the ways of elevating Buddhist education and research in Russia. Bring back the glory which Russian Buddhology used to have, which was prominent and well known in the world since the 19th century and up to date. I wish everybody fruitful, effective work. And first of all, I am giving the floor to Aldar Valeryevich Damdinov, rector of Banzarov Burat State University. And his university is the groundwork for development of many Buddhist universities of Russia. He's one of the initiators of the Russian Consortium for Buddhist Research. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you very much for. Actually, you have already presented the topic of our conversation today, and I do believe that together with all important topics that we can hear today within our Buddhist forums, the topic of education, of science, is the key topic for us. And when I was preparing for this significant forum, we had long negotiations which resulted in the conclusion of the agreement between three classical universities: Burat State University, Kalmyk State University, after Gradovikov, and Tuva State University, and two religious higher institutions, Ilginsky University and Aginsk Buddhist Academy. So, why it is so important, and what are the promises of such unification and cooperation? We do believe that now it is a moment when we can join our efforts, and I would say more. We will be interesting to each other, not only in terms of presenting the level of methods of education and approaches to the education that can be used at the level of the university education for religious teachers of religion, but as classical universities, we could learn a lot as well. I would like to start with it, yeah, before the slides. my presentation, I would say that across the globe, big problems connected with higher education are faced. It's connected with the destructive processes that are occurring and questions who is the next provider of the education, whether it's an old Gumbelt system, professor, student, or information technologies, where we will be in future. And Buddhism, with its long history, which is taught according to the traditions, will be very interesting to us. So this is my point. But I would like to start with the fact why Buryatia, why we say that this is the center of Buddhism in Russia, and we all know that Buddhism started to penetrate into Buryatia in the beginning of the 17th century, but the beginning of the new history is the 17th century, and in 1741 we had 11 monasteries and 150 lamas. In 1764 an institute was established after Pandita Hambalam, and after that, when on the territory of Buryatia we had more than 46 monasteries and more than 15,000 lam and huvaraks, and what is more important, we had schools to prepare the lams on a very high level. Then we already know that in the years 1930s and 40s it was a relatively stable period, which grew after the Second World War, and the revival of Buddhism in Buryatia started in 1990s. And here we have to say thank you to our Mr. Ayushev, who makes a lot of efforts to develop monasteries and darsans in Buryatia. Buddhist University Dashichon Halin after Dampa Dajazaeva will be presented later today as well, but I would say that it's one of the key universities in Russia who prepares lamas, and the directions of preparation, academic preparations, the spectrum is very wide: medicine, tantric, philosophical, ethnographic, and more than 100 students study there, and we have a long history of cooperation with this university, and I believe today's consortium will give us better ground to continue our cooperation. And for us, Aginskaya Buddhist Academy is quite famous thanks to one named Babu Lama. It's a unique person who created the school of Tibetan medicine. We all know that before revolution it was Asagada Wele. It's connected with the name of Aglan Darjiev, and today Aginsk Buddhist Academy absorbed a lot from that spiritual practice that existed before. So regarding the secular aspect, we do know that a lot of transformations have been taking place over the last 10 years. So there are 5 models in the educational program. We took part in the creation of that educational and academic models here, and my colleagues are here that we work together. Back then, those models have been implemented into schools. Of course, they have peculiarities, and not all students choose this or that model connected with this or that religion. Mostly they choose secular ethics, non-religious ethics, which is also very important to move forward. And our Burat State University, of course, cooperates very actively on this field. We are very proud that we have created scientific schools connected with the philosophy of Buddhism, with the development of those scientific researches connected with culture, history, and philosophy of Buddhism. And here on the slide you can see the list of grants that we won. I have to say that today the grants that we have won recently, why it's very important, because it's a very concrete work, it's a very specific work, and together with our colleagues we have been working on it. And to conclude my brief presentation, I would like to say that we today take into consideration words first when we prepare the program, which is called the philosophy of the Buddhism. It is very important for us to take into account their basics, yeah, the basic truths that we have, its experience of classical university, its cooperation with our Institute of Buddhist Studies, which will be mentioned later today, and we have Maria Valentinovna. Maria Valentinovna, could you please wave your hand, who works with the preparation of this program on philosophy of the Buddhism, and I will say that it's a very, very, interesting work, and to unite, to organize, to join all the disciplines, taking into account the format we have. It's a challenging work, but I'm sure that we will make it together with our foundation. And here I would like to underline the importance of consortium creation, which will help in our networking and creation of new programs. In this prospect, we are not alone, and we, together with scientific institutions, we need to take into consideration that we support on the base which we have written resources which are kept in state storages and archives, which give us a lot of knowledge, which have yet to be studied properly to provide our students with this knowledge. And today, the participants of our discussion, let's discuss how it can look, what formats, what forms, and how we can overcome the obstacles. I would say bureaucracy obstacles that's inevitable on our way, and some regulatory frameworks that we do have. Yeah, and maybe I would like to invite our foreign colleagues and friends who would share their experience, how this education occurs in their countries. Maybe they have experience in higher educational institutions, in higher education fields, so we could compare, so we could maybe agree on cooperation and mutual understanding to develop Buddhism. So, because we are all here for keeping and developing the traditions of Buddhism that they exist. So, I do hope that our conversation will be very interesting and fruitful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Aldar Valerievich, for raising such a very important topic of cooperation. I think alone a university, any university of Russia, can develop such program. It's impossible, and the colleagues who have signed the consortiums of universities who do these Buddhist studies, they have opened the doors to join not only Russian but foreign universities as well. So I do believe that we need to continue this, and I will reveal a secret together with Buryat State University today and Moscow State University, leading Oriental Studies organization, signed agreement of cooperation. So from their foundation, from other high institutions, you can have our support. I would like to give a floor to one very important member of our consortium, Olga Matpaevna Homushkina.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I would like to make a few comments and develop Aldar Valerievich idea. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to the organizers of this large-scale, high-profile event, and a separate thank you to the foundation headed by Alexey Alexandrovich. My deepest appreciation for what you're doing. Dear colleagues, in reality, I can see that in such a short time, I believe that we've had quite a few competitions and with any number of participants, and we're happy that there was an opportunity to be supported, to receive the grant support. It's of course it's not enough to get the financial support. You have to be able to implement the project that has been supported and then apply for the next grant. As for my presentation today, I would like to start with the history first. Aldar Valerievich highlighted or indicated the circle of issues that we used to have, like all the religious institutions used to face. But Tuva has its own unique feature. Oh, yeah, could you please switch the slides? As you can see on the slide, Tuva joined the USSR in 1944, the latest of other national republics. But the internal policy of Tuvan People's Republic, the name which it used to have, this policy largely depended on the politics and the policy dictated by the Comintern, Communistic International Organization. We can say that Buryatia managed to preserve at least one religious institution. In the 30s, in Tuva, all the temples were destroyed and all the clergy faced repressions. So in 1990s, when the country was going through perestroika, we had to start over to restore Buddhism, and the first lamas had no education. They were not able to finish any educational institution. Later, it became easier, it was more systematic, but the 1990 can be called the starting point for this process because there was a so called Buddhist assembly organized not by the clergy even because they were few, they were scarce, but by the intellectual circles. And the Kambulan institution takes its origin from those times. Some general information on the slides, for example, in 1929, there were 25 hure, that is temple into one language, but it's hardly an exact number. In 1937, you can see there were only 5 hure and 67 lamas. So by the early 40s, there were no temples in Tuva, they were all destroyed. So right now we can say there is a process of revival of Buddhism, starting from zero and then upwards. For many of us, like for many Buddhists, an important event was the visits of Kambala, of Lama, and in 1999 the first temple was opened in Tuva. So I would like to focus on these photos. In May we opened the largest, the highest um, further, let me show you. So next. So the highest, the biggest Buddhist monastery, Tubten Shadrupling. I believe that the com- combining the finances, the material infrastructure, and the efforts that we invest is the way to success. In 2015, based on Tuva University, we opened a center for Buddhology and Tibetology. Dalai Lama expressed this wish when he visited, and also in 2011 I had an audience with him, and so based on what he expressed, his wish, we opened such a center for educational purposes. And supported by the foundation, supported by the grant money in designing educational programs, additional education programs. We had to prove we are able to implement the projects, although doubts could arise and they were grounded. But, well, Let me say that today, to continue what Aldar Valerievich said, I cannot say I'm quite confident in the vision of designing such programs. Today, in secular education, there is such a course, a program, theology, but actually it prepares, it trains clergy in the sphere of Christianity. In my understanding, today, yeah, there are certain steps in Buryatia, certain intentions in Kalmykia, certain desires in Tuva, but today there is an important problem, the correlation, the interaction between the system of secular education and spiritual education, religious education. In today's consortium, and I believe other steps related to this, including the support of Ministry for Science and Education in partnership with the ministry, will allow us to understand which experts, which professionals we should train. As of today, starting in September 2023, we actually start the courses for the clergy that will prepare them in Buddhist education. But by the terms of the grants, we can also attract clergy from other regions, not only Tuva. The grant allows that. We will have modules connected not only to the philosophy of Buddhism, not only to the history of Buddhism, but also as our local clergy expressed this desire that we will also have the legislation. We will study the legislation that regulates religion in the country. So we will meet this expectation from our students to teach them the legal base. As for the second competition of small grants that was announced by the foundation for the promotion of Buddhist education and research, we also received support. This will continue the developing of this direction because education is impossible without research, of course. We need the scientific base, we need research to support education. And we have had good results already. Results in translation and translatology, translation studies. Once Tuvan monasteries had quite a well developed, well rounded system of education. Partly it has been lost, partly it has been preserved. But thanks to the grant of the second competition, I believe we will have an opportunity uh, to present a number of translations to a wider circle of participants, a wider circle of students. I believe that speaking today about multipolar world, um, we can say that Buddhism as the world religion, so-called soft power, in influencing the modern geopolitical processes. Today, well, the forum that we're holding today speaks for itself. So this is the place, this is the factor, the soft power factor in this. And I believe at this forum, we should, Alexey Alexandrovich, I am turning to you. I would like to understand how we can connect, how we can interact, what will be the most relevant for us. What we have discussed behind the scenes, and I will repeat that again, we need networking, we need interaction, we need cooperation with Aldar Valerievich, with we will look into the possible prospects of interaction, cross lecturing maybe, visiting scholars from our universities. So we have a lot of work ahead, and I hope it will be fruitful. Olga Matpaevna, let me thank you sincerely. You are raising very important questions. My personal opinion, not the opinion of the foundation, it's not that important what aspect of Buddhism you will train in, because every aspect has their own programs like philosophy, theology. It raises a lot of issues. It can confuse our colleagues because Buddhism doesn't have this idea of theos, of single God. But also there are Oriental studies because we study a lot of texts in the Pali language, Old Mongolian, Chinese, and Oriental studies are also relevant for what we are doing. Thus, integrating a religious component into secular education is quite possible without changing the essence of secular education. Like separate courses in the secular education programs. We do not need three identical programs or three. We need three different programs to attract a wider audience. And now I'm giving the floor to one more president, my good old friend, the rector of Kalmyk State University.
uh, where there are so many programs developed, including Old Mongolian language and, of course, many texts. Thank you very much, dear Alexander Alexandrovich, uh, dear chairman and colleagues and participants of the forum. I would like to say, first of all, let me say thank you from our Kalmyk State University to say thank you for this large-scale event that is taking place in Buryatia today in Ulan-Ude, its capital. Dear colleagues, during the forum and in this case during our panel when we discuss this topic, each of us um, tends to solve two tasks: to share experience, it's number one, and number two, to search for new options, to find new trajectories in the development of education. Today we are speaking about Buddhist researchers, and I would like to say a couple of words about my vision and vision of my team regarding these fields. First of all, dear colleagues, the academic Buddhist studies developed in our university together with Oriental studies direction, because it's a key direction of our university, and we are happy that our university and the staff of our university continue the traditions of Oriental studies. And my dear colleagues, I would like to focus on the Buddhist world. So we speak about 7 steps, about this number seven as sacred. I would like to stop on our 7 actions that our steps that are taken by our university to find answers to the questions we have today. So, first of all, I would like to focus on the first thesis. We develop this direction, or developing this direction. Through developing the direction, we have opened the program, bachelor's program, Oriental Studies and African Studies. Thesis number two, very important. We managed to open and launch postgraduate program, Philosophy and Buddhism. And number three, we do understand that when we prepare specialists today, when we educate specialists today without international internship and economical education, it's impossible. So our university cooperates tightly with Russian and foreign universities, and our students have foreign internship in Mongolia, Tibet, China, and of course, it gives great experience in solving these tasks. Thesis number four, I would like to describe it briefly. Thesis number four, through developing all these directions, we do understand that it's important to create scientific educational centers, and we created such a center of Buddhist and philosophy studies based on our university. It's always a problem to hold scientific conferences, so that is why we hold many international forums and conferences in our Kalmyk State University. Then, next thesis, number five, participation in scientific projects and foundations together with international teams, so with international teams, and these international teams allow us to win grants and to find support, to receive support from different sources. So, what is important? What is more important? Speaking about scientific and educational operation today, the key achievement for us is attraction of young people. We have to attract young people, young colleagues to our science. And our professional academic team created a laboratory. By the way, we won the grant, 50 million rubles, which combat the challenges, today's challenges, and our young colleagues today work in this field and do this work. And thesis number seven today is development of Buddhist education and researchers under focus by our strategic project from our university, and the name of this project is Republic of Kalmykia, Crossroad of Cultures and Humanitarian projects within the framework of the program of development of the universities, the program Priority 2030. And one of the key goals of our university in this aspect is strengthening of traditions of the Buddhism and Oriental studies in Russia. We plan the launch of networking program Philosophy and Culture of Buddhism, and we, together with the authorities of our republic, want to develop grant programs, regional programs for young researchers in the field of Buddhist culture and Oriental studies, and creation on the basis of the university's Republican Center of International Mobility to facilitate international cooperation of young scientists and implementation of support measures for their non-stop professional development. Dear colleagues, of course, all these directions I mentioned earlier, I listed them because it's a tremendous work, it's a tremendous preparation of staff, of human resources, it's search for educational programs, scientific programs, it's a creation of cooperation and mutual teams, work teams. We have a saying in our language. It means there are so many who can talk and there are so few people who can do. So I believe that our forum is for doers, not only for speakers, to implement new projects in this direction. And to conclude my presentation, dear colleagues, I would like to focus that we all understand that science, our science, Russian science, is becoming more complex, more interdisciplinary, and more creative, and we improve our research methods. And I want to say thank you to everyone who is present today, including organizers, for this tremendous work that has been done, and for this opportunity to cooperate, to communicate and work here today, and of course move forward for the sake of Oriental studies and Buddhist education. Dear colleagues, thank you very much. There is one more saying, which means when you have a topic, interesting topic, you want to say more. And I do understand that we are limited in time. So once again, thank you very much for your attention and for creation of such forum, and the support of our foundation and our university and our colleagues will help us and allow us to join our forces. Only through consolidation, only through mutual work, and through creative search and research will bring the results in the development of Buddhist education in the Russian Federation. With our foreign guests and with the creation of the international ground, this is our major goal. Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you. Uh, it's a very scientific and governmental approach because without this consolidation, yes, we are likely to fail. And this exchange with Mongolia, China is crucial because it is very important to compare our vision so we don't focus on ourselves only. And I'm giving the microphone to Dabra Lama. Dear colleagues, dear guests, distinguished guests, I'm so happy that we have so many participants today, so diverse people from different fields of life, and we have managed to gather together today at the forum thanks to Buddhism. And the Buddhism doesn't have any borders, whether it's geography or nationality. That is why we could gather together and find the common topic to discuss. And our discussion today, I mean our panel discussion, is the best today. Why? Because the most precious aspect in Buddhism is education. Other panels can discuss anything else, but here we are talking about education. We are the best, yeah? So, yes, I do think so. And we have a monk who came to us from Myanmar, and his name is Mr. Bhadanka, and he's senior person among us. We are all young, yeah. Let's observe his mood, yeah. So let's just check his face, yeah. If he's happy, it means we do everything right. If he's not happy, it means we do something wrong, yeah. And this is the idea, this assembly of secular people, of religious people, of people of different, professions and beliefs. This is great. It's a new format for us, and we have talked a lot today. And our rectors mentioned that they support Buddhist education, and recently we signed a consortium, or you can call it agreement of cooperation between religious universities and secular universities, and it's a huge step it's something new in our country, and it means that together that non-religious and religious, secular institutions and religious institutions will create useful things, let's call it like that, useful for people, useful for society, useful for each of us. And that is why our day today is so important, and I would like to congratulate you on this day, and I would like to give the floor to the representative from Myanmar, from the International Theravada Buddhist University, Mr. Sain Moore. Mr. Sain Moore, the floor is yours. So please use the headset to hear the translation.
Respected spiritual leaders, dignitaries, invite guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to all of you. I am U Seymour from Myanmar. The paper I am going to present is education in the International Theravada Buddhist Missionary University and Traditional Buddhism and Modern Challenge. Myanmar has been preserving Theravada Buddhism in its pristine form for nearly 1,000 years. She is sharing her knowledge of Buddhism both in theory and practice with the people of the world to promote their happiness and moral well-being. The main theme of this forum, traditional Buddhism and modern challenges, is the most important issue for our Myanmar delegation. We, the people of Myanmar, have been following traditional Buddhist way of life since the time of the people embraced Buddhism. Myanmar traditional Buddhism is based on faith on the triple gems, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. The action and its reaction that came to effect in our daily life. We follow the four principles: lovely kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, sympathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekha, as taught by the Buddhas. By following traditional ways, the peoples of Myanmar enjoy bliss and prosperity. In modern time, we may not have many challenges to meet the world on par with through traditional Buddhism. Anyhow, by transforming the concepts of the four principles into our fellow people globally, we can challenge the modern world by joining hands together because the message of the Buddha has no space and time to apply in our daily life. With the booming of tourism, more tourists are coming into Myanmar, but the problem faced by the foreigners who came to Myanmar to study Theravada Buddhist scripture and meditation is finding an institutions where they can learn Theravada Buddhism systematically with the view to solve the problem for the sake of foreigners and promoting Theravada Buddhism throughout the world. The head of the state expressed his desire to set up an international Buddhist university. The Ministry of Religious Affairs and Culture carries out the following texts to increase the populations of Theravada Buddhists by Buddhist missionaries, to translate all the volume of Tipitaka into English and publish them for the propagation of the Dhamma, to train the missionary monks and lay persons for the missionary works in abroad and to propagate the Dhamma to the world through internet. The inaugurations of the International Theravada Buddhist Missionary University, IDVMU, on 9 December 1998 has opened a new chapter in the history of promotions and propagation of Theravada Buddhism. Having gone through so many expert hands and brains, a new Buddhist university for the study of Theravada Buddhist Dhamma was born on Dhammapala Hill near the Sacred Tooth Religious Pagoda, Yangon, Myanmar. IDVNU shares the teaching of the Buddha, the canonical texts of Theravada Pitaka, and approached successively by the Six Buddhist Council to the world, both theory and practice. Those who wish to learn Theravada Buddhist canonical texts and insights meditation in Myanmar tradition have the great chance to study them from Myanmar Buddhist scholars of high academic achievements at home and abroad. There are 5 objectives of the university: to share the genuine Theravada Buddhism with the peoples of the world, to study comprehend the canonical texts of Theravada Buddhism as approved successively by the 6 Buddhist Council, to abstain from evil deeds and practice good deeds, to promote the 4 modes of Struggling living Yamavihara ways will lead to the establishment of peaceful and prosperous war. To train more missionaries endowed with good morality who are well versed in Pitaka literatures and meditation practice. In academic career, there are 4 faculties in our university, and there are faculty of piety, faculty of prepati, faculty of religious and missionary works, faculty of foreign language and translation. The subjects shares to the students are dis- disciplinary rules, vinaya, the discourse, suktanda, the psycho-ethic philosophy, avidhamma, dhammanuloma, concentration meditation, samatha, insight meditation, vipassana. Buddhist culture and history, comparative studies of religious missionary works, research methodologies, Pali and Myanmar language. The medium of instruction is English. In teaching careers, discussion, workshops, paper reading, practical meditation, going for and food, pinta bata are being exercised and excursions to the Asian pagodas and religious movements. Meditation centers and Buddhist university are conducted. IDVNU confers the following certificates and degrees: Diploma certificates 1-year course, BA Buddha Dhamma 2-year course, MA Buddha Dhamma 3 years course, PhD Buddha Dhamma 4-year course. The academic year is divided into 2 terms. First term starts in June and ends in September, and second term starts in December and ends in March. Any applicants for diploma is in Buddhist Dhamma will have to meet the following requirements. The foreign monks, nuns, and laymen must have passed at least the matriculations of equivalence. The candidates need to sit for an entrance examination prescribed by the university. They should have some knowledge of Pali, Sanskrit, Theravada, Buddhist, Sanskrit, fluency in spoken and written English in desirable. Anyone regardless of gender, race, religions, and creed who have educational qualifications prescribed by the university can apply for admission. Enrollments open in September, and applicants are required to sit for the entrance examination, conducted both written and interview held in January. The university provides foreign students with free accommodations, meals, and health care services. There are our library. There are over 54,000 books, including PDF series in international encyclopedias of Buddhism of 75 volumes. Anglo encyclopedias of religious ethics and latest Buddhist scriptures written by famous Theravada Buddhist monk. In the recent 2023-24 academic year, there are 312 local and overseas students from 50 countries who are joining in IDVMU. Those countries are Bangladesh, Cambodia, China, Finland, India, Indonesia, Japan, Laos, Malaysia, Nepal, Russia, South Africa, Vietnam, America, and Myanmar. From the time of its academic careers up to date, IDVNU has produced 1,211 diploma in Buddha Dhamma, 804 BA Buddha Dhamma, 229 MA Buddha Dhamma, and 40 PhD Buddha Dhamma, respectively. In conclusion, it is a great honor for us to attend this conference. We sincerely hope that all the delegates have a good chance to challenge their views and share their and valuable experience in academic works in teaching the Buddha's Dhamma. It is also believed that there will be more cooperation and collaboration amongst the Buddhist university all over the world in propagating the Buddhist Dhamma. We would like to mention that the International Theravada Buddhist Missionary University, IDVMU, will keep on disseminating Theravada Buddhism as set out in its main objectives by joining hands with the Buddhists all over the world. I wish all of you serve the well-being of the world and be prosperous. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. Yes, international experience. We do need it. We do need this international experience and exchange of our experience and share it. And thank you so much for visiting us, for presenting this information. And our next speaker is Andrei Bazarov. The floor is yours. Andrei Bazarov is our big friend, friend of our Buddhist university, and when Aldar Valerievich mentions the program, bachelor's program that we are creating right now, actually Andrei also works on this initiative, and today we started to develop this program this year, and Andrei Alexandrovich has a lot to say about it. So, Andrei, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. My presentation is. Can you please scroll my presentation? Yeah, so I will not stop on some slides. I actually called my presentation Buddhist, the biggest center of Buddhist education, Buddhist and philosophical education. As far as I'm a professor of the faculty, so could you please scroll it? Yeah, so I'm the professor of the faculty of history. I'm the keeper of their funds, actually, at the same time. And thanks to the sources and resources, I can prove that yes, philosophical and Buddhist education in Buryatia was on a high level in the beginning of the 20th century, and normally we talk about books here as a main source of information for education. Normally in science it is performed through studying of publishing activity, because the whole process of education was provided by the literature, by publishing of some written works. I would like to show you on the slide how the education was based on 5 subjects, 5 books. Yeah, give me a moment, I will change the slide. So you see it's a very good book, yeah, so that you can see on the slides. So it consists more than 200 pages. It was published in the 19th century. It's about logic, the study of logic, epistemology. We had 2 issues of that, like that in Buryatia. Very good. It's like a pocket book, very good and convenient format. Yeah, just pocket book. Yeah, really. Each student had this book. You know, it's also very, very good in terms of the educational purposes. Edition, pocket book, Madhyamika, Chandarakirti, Madhyamika Avatara, all these texts, basic texts presented in this pocket books. Abhidharma, so two very specific pictures, illustrations, Sangha on the left and Subhanhum on the right. You can see this manuscript, the size of this manuscript on the slide. And Dunta was Jamen Sharbi, written Also very good edition Lama Rim that you can see on this slide. Buryat Lama Rim, famous across the globe as Buryat notes about Alam Rim. Professor Loki Chandram re-edited it in Delhi. The manuscript, unfortunately, we don't have the manuscript physically. So why I'm showing you this to prove that yes, as Aldar Valerievich mentioned earlier, we did have this Buddhist and philosophical education based on history, and it still exists. But my today's presentation, it's not about history itself, but about the present days, yeah, about the present, about today. I happened to work with Buddhist education, and what I have to say is, as a professional philosopher and historian, I would like to characterize what kind of education is provided in Buddhist universities. If you look at it from a side, it's a kind of a university scholastics. It's a kind of analogy of Western European scholastic approach, which gave foundation to the modern university system. And this education is pretty conservative, that keeps and preserves its standards over many and many years. And in this conservatism, it existed in the 20th century. So, and actually, my scientific work was devoted to this topic. I was working with this amazing thing of unity of negative comments towards these fields and write evidences. You cannot build university system only based on negative comments and feedback. So, and my goal was to observe how it develops systematically in the Central Asia. The big problem, how this education which is about 16 years old with 5 key subjects, how it can be integrated into the modern educational system. And does it make sense to integrate it into this modern university system from 4 to 6 years, yeah, according to Bolon system? So how can we build it in? And in Buryatia, me myself, actually, I have to say that I lived 20 years in St. Petersburg, and then I moved to Buryatia. So I observed, and judging by my observations, Buryatia has special environment and conditions as Buryat State University, where I have been teaching for 15 years so far. And this university is 90 years old. It's very trustworthy. It's very serious university with 90-year history. What can be connected? So how we can connect it with the Buddhist study? I teach in Oriental and African Studies direction. We also have philosophy faculty, the oldest faculty of the university. Again, very serious, very professional. As a professional philosopher, I have to say that they have a very strong methodological basis, and the faculty of theology, which is 10 years old. You can compare. Yeah, the faculty of philosophy is 90 years old, and the faculty of theology is 10 years old. It's pretty young. And so I have to say that all three faculties are very. So I know all three faculties pretty well because. I founded, actually, I was one of the founders of the Faculty of Theology, and with the Faculty of Philosophy, I do work pretty tightly. Together with Buryat State University, I also work with other institutions and universities, and one of them is 30 years old, and Of course, I'm always interested in the teaching staff, which normally changes, and over 30 years it has changed. In India, they prepared very professional teaching staff, very well educated teachers who achieved all high achievements, and in this educational system. Uh, the education is 8 years old there, and the rector is here. By the way, we can ask him this question. And I don't know how they reduce this 16-year program, but I think it deals with the subjects, yes, with main subjects. Together with these two organizations in Buryatia, the Buddhist studies have long history and tradition in two periods, divided into two periods. Early period, which is connected with Russian emperors and Russian Emperor Academy, and the second period is 1950s, 1980s. For a long time, it developed as a part of Eastern studies, Oriental studies, but starting from the 1970s, it started to be developed as a philosophy. And thanks to the whole generation of outstanding scientists, now it's been formed not in the university but in the Institute of Mongol and Buddhist Studies. Buryatia is a center of Buddhist studies, not Tibetan or Mongol studies or Chinese studies. So these three organizations that employed in this situation of integration. It is necessary to say that when, for example, Alexei says that we should form any direction, yeah, I agree with him that as far as we have rectors from 3 universities here during our panel discussion, I have talked only to 2 of them, and I'm so grateful for their support. But I can't see the rector of Baikal State University, Mr. Gardienko, that we also talked. So rectors of the universities and the rectors, they are right when they say about development of new directions, right directions. As far as I was the manager of the faculties, and I was engaged into development of these directions in the universities, 3 directions: philosophy, theology, and Oriental studies. I tried to develop Buddhism in the frame of the theological studies. Yes, it was successful. It was my first experience in the Russian Federation, this standard. Then, within Oriental and African studies, I worked at this faculty. We attempted to develop Buddhist studies. Yeah, I do know that in St. Petersburg University they have such experience. It's a typical story that within the framework of the program of African and Eastern studies, they can integrate. But it's not about the history of confessions. Yeah, Piotrovsky had this experience, and he organized the history of Islam. He actually took the history of confession of Islam studies. And it's also a variant, an option to develop as a history. So it's classics: history, philology, international relationships within the context. And I do remember that the components changed of these programs, and I do know that in Kalmyk University they try to reconstruct such experience in their postgraduate programs, but in each and every university they have different approaches to this, connected with history, with conditions, yeah, and we need to develop it in any case, yeah, just taking into account the situation. But in the university, we develop the basics, we develop the base on the faculty of philosophy, and thanks to the heads of these faculties, we formed the directions, and I took part in it. I took part in comprising of the program, educational program, academic program for the universities. Yeah, how many hours should be devoted to each and every subject, and the standard that is given to philosophy included the hours for Buddhist studies. And now this project is being formed as a project of dual diploma. So students, when they graduate this university, will receive two diplomas: one secular diploma, and second religious, yeah, or Buddhist diploma on Buddhist studies. If you take the situation globally, I worked and I had internship in Otoni University. I had Japanese University of Forming of Buddhist Education. It's a unique experience. It was a unique experience. Yeah, I studied. I had the internship in India as well. Have the university created or established by the Indian government, Jawaharlal Nehru, and it was also a great experience. So I have to say that globally there is experience of introduction and establishment of such programs, and here in Russia, with our history and standards, we can do it. And I am for the fact that we should keep traditional university education. It's unique. It doesn't need to be transformed, but this direction should be developed independently. It should become independent, and we can help. I mean, secular scientists, we can help with accreditation of this academic direction to develop independently, and the faculty of philosophy sometimes is the program of the faculty of philosophy sometimes is very far from Buddhism with its program, but interdisciplinary faculties can provide this opportunity for cooperation in little group or in small groups of students, which allow part of students to cooperate. Yeah. Sorry, we have run out of time. Yeah, it's my, it's a topic of my interest. Yeah, because I have been working in it through my whole life. Yeah, I can talk a lot about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite Alexandra Lvovna Safronova, representing Institute of Asian and African Countries, Lomonosov Moscow State University, the head of the department. You can join us here on the stage. Oh, would you like to stand? So we'll provide you with a microphone. Alexandra Lvovna is one of the key researchers on studying Buddhism in Southern Asia. She's a professor and PhD in history. It's a tradition that a professor does a standing presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I am more comfortable and the standing position is very convenient for me. When I present the topic of my presentation is Buddhist Centers of Traditional Education and Buddhology educational programs in the university system of the Republic of India. I was very pleased to hear that almost every presenter today mentioned India. So there are certain close connections with India already, with our Buddhist universities and Buddhist communities. I was very happy to see in the program of the conference that many representatives, deans and professors of Buddhist educational institutions that I was planning to mention are actually present here. They have been invited to come and they have arrived. I believe it makes sense and to develop the cooperation and interaction with India. India is the birthplace of Buddhist teachings, and of course, we have a lot to learn at different educational institutions of this country. Buddhism has always been associated with the monuments, with the ideas of high intellectual tradition, with different teachings and directions based on interpretation of Buddhist teachings, on finding the golden section, and which all has contributed to developing the tradition of transmission of knowledge and turning Buddhist monasteries into centers of education. And Buddhist centers became the foundations for preserving Buddhist knowledge. Oh, I didn't expect that I have to stand like this. You can see the routes for pilgrimage on the map of India, which indicate multiple places for traditional education connected to the places where Buddha stayed. And modern researchers, modern Buddhologists, call these routes whether the Pearl Belt of India or the Pearl Necklace of India. In the last quarter of the 19th century, cultural and educational organizations for Buddhists were created outside Sangha, which connected both lay people and monks of different traditions. And the first tradition was the Society of Madhabodhi, which was created in Kolkata. And the head of it was the important, prominent scholar Anagarika Dhamparapala. In Buddhist organizations were the centers for studying and disseminating Buddhist knowledge. And their main objectives were spreading Buddhist education and disseminating Buddhist teachings. The leading Buddhist schools were actively involved in reviving of Buddhist education, and they still perform this function. These were institutions where the European education, which included getting acquainted the students with newest achievements of science and social ideas, was combined with elements of traditional educations, including basics of Buddhist religion, Sanskrit, Pali, modern Oriental languages, Oriental philosophy, literature, and history. It is natural that the main tasks were connected with restoring of traditional educational centers. And the first of them is Bodh Gaya, the place where Buddha reached his enlightenment. And up to now, Buddhist important celebrations are held here, conferences are held here, Buddhologists come here from all over the world, the clergy come here. And of course, Bodh Gaya is the center of attraction, the center of education connected to traditional Buddhist education. Buddhist sources contain various names for Buddhist centers of knowledge, and most common of them definitions Gana, Mula, Yatanavihara, Pansala, and the most prominent are Pirivenas. Such centers of monastery education, monastic education were developed into Buddhist universities. As a result, India has six main universities: Nalanda, Jagandala, Samapuri, Valabhi, and two more. The most well-known Buddhist university is, of course, Nalanda University. Today it's completely restored and has the name of Nalanda Mahavihara. It's close to the place where an ancient university was built, and it includes schools of Buddhist philosophy, comparative religious studies. There is also a school of historic knowledge and studying Buddhist sources. Today, it's the part of the list of the World Heritage of UNESCO, and it's transformed into University of Nalanda. Buddhist centers were originally called deemed universities, but then they acquired the status of fully established universities. Another important center of Buddhist scholarship is, of course, Dharamsala. Here you can find the richest library for Buddhist manuscripts, rare editions, and pilgrims, those who want to get access to Buddhist knowledge, arrive here. Tibetan Buddhism is studied in the Central Institute of Buddhist Studies in Ladakh, Leh, and Institute of Buddhist Studies is also organized in Sanchi. And the centers for Buddhist teachers are also Sarnathi University, which has been mentioned today earlier. It's the place for the first sermon of Buddha. And the University of Buddhist Studies, Gautam Buddha University. And we should also mention another important university, Banaras Hindu. You may think this is a center for studying Hinduism, but as a matter of fact, it has a very important school of Buddhist studies, which demonstrates the current policy of Indian authorities, which give priority, one of the priorities to developing Buddhism education along with Hinduism education. Buddhism is seen as an important value and a philosophy of value in Indian society. And the current Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that Indian nation can be identified as a Buddhist nation, which is of high importance. In other major universities, Delhi, Mumbai, and others, there are centers for Buddhist studies or Department of Buddhist Studies. They are often incorporated into faculties of art. They do classical Buddhology, translation, and commentary. And every year, at the annual celebration of Buddha Jayanti, there are readings and of texts, and Buddhism is seen as a major force which can lead to peaceful cooperation. And there are so many Buddhist publications. There are publishing houses in India that focus on publishing Indian texts, and they open their branches in all main cities in India. If you have a chance to visit a bookstore in India, in big cities, you can see a lot of editions connected to um, different issues, not only of Buddhist philosophy, but also many studies recently have been published on the social role of Buddhism, anthropological studies, political studies, all the current trends of research. A huge role is played by such an organization as International Buddhist Confederation, IBC. This organization has conducted a Buddhist summit, global Buddhist summit, which discussed a number of issues of developing Buddhism, including Buddhism education, improving the system. Why is it important for the Indian society? As the resolution said of the Global Buddhist Summit, syncretism and tolerance, uh, the ideas of egalitarianism, calls for moral improvement, perfection, compromises, which are characteristic of Buddhist Indian culture and Indian religious and philosophical ideas, have led the Indian society forward. It also includes very important terms important for understanding the role of Buddhism in the modern world, not only India alone, but the world on the whole. It says that Buddhism has given the world such concepts as intellectual pluralism and intellectual, intellectual heterodoxy, which is important to relieve the world of conflicts. What is also interesting that the Prime Minister Modi, in his presentation in one of the sessions, UN sessions, mentioned, he actually pronounced a very important phrase that India has given the world not Yudha but Buddha, which I believe is important for understanding the prospects of developing the humanity. That is why the program of Buddhist studies is officially included into all the programs, educational programs in Indian universities. Thank you so much for the attention. I wasn't really comfortable, but I made this decision to do it standing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for such a university lecture. Thank you indeed. Right. Thank you. I would like to invite our next speaker, Alexander Ramich Kacharov, Master of Buddhist Traditional Sangha of Russia. Earlier we said about university where Buddhist ideology is studied, and Mr. Kacharov was a teacher, and he was the first foreigner to teach Buddhist art and Tanka art in India, and now he's the master of Buddhist painting, and he painted us two beautiful tankas, Nagarjuna and Asanga, that are, I would say, the followers and devotees of Buddha, who after 400 years after Buddha left, revived the understanding of Mahayana, and after 500 years, Asanga appeared, and following these two outstanding scientists, we still have this teaching. And I would like to invite Mr. Kacharov, which is called Buddhist Arts Education Traditions in Modern Life. Thank you very much. Dear Descende Bru, dear Professor Maslov, the rectors of the universities and guests of the Buddhist Forum. It's a true miracle that in Buryatia such a forum on the governmental level is held. We couldn't even think about or dream about it not long ago. So my congratulations on this special event to everyone. And I would like to start with this praising, with the words of praise which outstanding philosopher Nagarjuna said. And I would like to start in Sanskrit. So Ulan-Ude could hear Sanskrit. And in Tibetan language, it sounds like that. And if you translate it, it will be I kneel in front of this Gautama who, through his great compassion, created this teaching to remove all false doubts. It was Mayamika character where Nagarjuna, an outstanding philosopher, praised Buddha. And my presentation, my speech today will deal with the education of art education in India, Tibet, and Eastern Siberia. I would like to organize my experience in teaching and art in these countries. And in my presentation today, I would like to cover the questions of teaching of Tanka Buddhist arts on territory of Tibet, Eastern Siberia, and Mongolia. As you know, Tanka is a sacred illustration or painting on fabric which can be held in Buddhist temples as an icon and in homes as well. So in the illustration of Buddhist books, it's Tanka is a key icon, an illustration of karma of Buddhist teaching. It's an art which was spread in Tibet, across Tibet, and absorbed best traditions of India, Silk Road, Nepal, and Russia, including classical Buddhist schools of 15th, 17th centuries, and it was followed by masters which led to Mongolia and Russian state. Before the revolution, the tradition of Tanka's art were kept in temples by monks who supported with their disciples and students this direction in Beijing, in Mongolia, in Jagdshahuduktu, in temples Lavran Kumbun, and eastern Tibet in Dirke and Vulhasia, where these trade unions of masters, secular masters, worked and took orders. In Russia, Datsans had these institutions and teachings. In 1979, I went to Buryatia. I was lucky to meet Mr. Tsitsebenov, one of the last experts in tankers. We made copies of very good tankers and restored some of them. And having general education in the Tibetan language and arts in 1989, together with a great teacher and his support, I went to his country in Himachal Pradesh state. They had 3 schools of Tibetan painting, one um, next to the library, Tibetan library. The second one, together with Master Sangye from the Eastern Tibet, and the third in the Center of Public Arts. Actually, you can see him on the slide on the right, whose family tree came to the fifth Dalai Lama, the fifth, at the beginning of the 17th century, and also Kulu Valley. We also went there. You can see it on the slide. And all these schools that were created by the Indian government, the educational process was more or less the same. It lasted 5 years, and at the same time, the Academy of Arts was created in the Institute of Culture of Narbulinka. And similar schools existed in Nepal, Sikkim, and Bhutan. And when I came there to study, I joined the school in Tibet. And at the same time, a famous Mongolian artist came there who already had Mongolian education in arts, and we actually studied there together. The program of their education in our school consisted of the following subjects: course of the drawing, proportions in the Tibetan drawings, then tankers, studying their landscapes and other elements of the Buddhist art. Then, parallelly, we had the history of the Buddhist art and culture, the history of the Tibetan paintings and arts, and different schools. Evolution of the school Minri, which was originated in the beginning of the 15th century, iconography, iconometric methods and materials, history of Buddhism. Then we studied philosophy and religious literature, the Tibetan language, ethics and aesthetics, and then the role of the Buddhist art in the history of the civilization. Then, after we finished the course, we had an exam, and we, together with Turbat, we received the highest score, and we were allowed to teach this art. And Parabat returned to Mongolia. He went to Mongolia. He opened the Institute of Buddhist Art, and I was invited to the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Education to open the faculty of the Tibetan arts. At the same time, we studied at Tibetan monastery, and we studied mandalas, and we studied symbolism of the Buddhist art. And in Sarnath University, together with the scientists from India, I created educational programs for higher education in the university, Buddhist university, and there we try to combine secular and religious education, which was approved by the Academic Council in India. And for this work, I was honored by the professor's degree and the opening of the faculty. After that, I taught in different schools and institutions in India, Japan, and the United States. And Porabat in Mongolia created an Institute of Buddhist Art, gradually restored traditional art of Mongolia, and started to write an encyclopedia of Buddhist art. And now he has completed 12 volumes of this encyclopedia. What else? Just a moment. After this, I was invited by Hambalamid Dalai to Buryatia to help restore Buddhist temples and take part in educational programs here. And I took part in educational works in Buryatia, and in winter I read lectures in educational institutions in Buryatia. So the question is, So the question is how to adapt religious art programs for modern secular educational institutions, institutes of cultures, art schools, universities. So there are two approaches to this. The first approach deals with workshops and seminars on this question when we invite lamas, art experts, folk experts, and specialists on national cultures, ethnic cultures, to take into consideration the peculiarities of such educational programs. And so it's also very important to take into account the experiences of other countries in this perspective and share the experience of their educational programs. I agree with Professor Bazarov, and I also think that traditional education should be left in the form it exists now. But to adapt for adaptation we need to develop 3 months or 6 months courses where educated Buddhist practitioners could create educational programs and curriculums to teach in educational facilities and institutions, because if you take a complex to introduce it in the universities, it's very challenging task. You have to know the languages, you have to know the literature on these languages, you need to know philosophy, you need to be aware of the whole complex of the subjects, which is not quite possible to study by modern students and modern universities. That is why it requires great discussion and taking into account the experience of scientists across the globe. So, what my recommendation would be to the rectors of institutions is to get familiar with Sarnath University experience, where this question was tackled on the governmental level. They adapted Buddhist education, including languages, history, philosophy, art, and other subjects. It was integrated to the secular education, and the students study 5, 7, or 9 years, and they have this degree of acharya, and then they go to postgraduate where they obtain higher Buddhist education in the university. Moreover, we have experience already when our guys from the Russian Federation graduated this university, and they got the degree of acharya from Tuva, Kalmykia, and Moscow. One girl from Moscow, she became an acharya too, a Russian girl, so it's possible. So again, my words of congratulations on this forum, and I think we need to keep the tradition of this forum. We need this discussion, so scientists, Buddhists, educators, to preserve Buddhist education, to promote Buddhist education, so the Buddhist civilization would contribute to civilization, to the humanity prosperity, and preserving of the best moral qualities in our society and our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Alexander Aramovich, thank you for the beautiful presentation. You have touched upon the issue that monastical education and secular education, whether they should be mixed or they should be described separately, seen separately, but we will continue the discussion, and if you have an opinion on this, please share. What, well, next with Andrei Alexandrovich, what we came up with is we would like to teach our students within secular education, and there will be a dual diploma program in our Buddhist university. The program includes 8 years, and first for 2-3 years the students study Tibetan language, since the main program is the same with the Tibetan university, identical. So first they have to master the language, and later they pick up disciplines or courses which are studied in small monasteries. We can give only two of them. The logics, Pranamavartika, And Prajnaparabita, that is the wisdom, this part. They are the major parts. Drepung Monastery or other monasteries have programs which include 5 modules, the logics, and then the second one is Prajnaparabita. When the course is 100 people large, after the course of this second course, 30 or 40% can drop out. If you complete this course, then you are a professional and you are a monk. This certifies you as a successful, effective student. So we provide them with these first 2 modules, and next they can continue their studies in other places, in their home places. So they have this choice. And now we would like our students to study both secular courses, secular disciplines, and also Buddhist philosophy. That is why we are kind of on the threshold of this big event or big mistake, so we're not sure yet. I have no education if you measure me by secular guidelines, by secular principles. I have 11 classes of school education, middle school. But still, I'm sitting here, I have the microphone, so I do not feel discriminated. But if we see into the future, standardization of education in our country uh, has to take one common route, probably, some common standards, and monks should also have accreditation certification so that they could teach, they could study first and take some lectures in educational institutions. But now, a person in the traditional religious clothes cannot deliver lectures in secular educational institutions. By default, if there is no teacher who can teach Buddhism, the parents are asked not to apply for Buddhist courses but for secular ethics. But Orthodox Christianity teachers, if they are available, well, actually, Orthodox priests cannot deliver lectures either. They have to be certified professors. So, yeah, we have to overcome this obstacle how the clergy can get specific accreditation to be able to teach at secular universities. And the young generation can be involved into Buddhist values through teaching, through learning at monasteries. They can also acquire moral values and ethical norms based on Buddhist tradition in such regions as Buryatia and other regions where Buddhism has been practiced traditionally. So this can be the part of work implemented by Buddhist monasteries. Well, I'm not sure yet. I'm not confident which way is the correct way. I have the internal debate as well. And we also have opponents inside the university who are against mixing secular and religious education. If they come to Datsan, let them study religious courses, but there are also proponents of combining secular and religious education. So this is the situation overall. Basically, I think we can. Oh, let me say a couple of words. In India, there was such experience that many lamas who came to India from Tibet, very educated senior lamas, came to Sarnath University to have courses of Acharya and receive diplomas from the official state university. And this diploma gave them the right to teach in Western countries, not only in monasteries but also universities. But those who had monastery education only, of course, couldn't teach, yeah, without the traditional diploma, secular diploma. So maybe some forms of secular education should supplement Buddhist education, and they would allow a wider dissemination of Buddhist education and Buddhist ideas. Let me say a couple of words. We shouldn't confuse several important things. First of all, we shouldn't force the clergy, Buddhist clergy, study secular disciplines. This is voluntary and this should be based on the person's needs, because when you are in the monastery, you do not need secular education. But also in Russia, we have state educational standards which we cannot get rid of. So secular education in Russia cannot learn for 8 or 10 years. All we can do here for the clergy, for the lamas, is to provide them with an opportunity to see the secular approaches to Buddhism, to philosophy, to text studies. Secular education shouldn't touch Buddhist disciplines because Buddhist academies can do that. So secular education has its restrictions, of course, and we shouldn't cross these borders, these limits, such as much as Buddhology and Buddhist itself are they are similar, they are close, but they are not identical. We're all sitting here together, but we're not identical. So that's what we're trying to find: these the correct ways, correct approaches. And next, I'm going to give the floor to Margarita Gamboeva. So maybe she can do it sitting. Gamboeva Margarita from Transbaikal State University. Good afternoon, dear organizers, dear participants of such a big forum. We are thankful for the invitation, for the opportunity to be among such prominent speakers. We are very honored. But today I would like to extend my gratitude to my homeland and to great Tatsans, Tsugul Tatsan, which was the founder of philosophical education, Buddhist philosophical in Buryatia, and Aginsky Datsan, the lamas of which we have here today, and to my university, which organized several major Buddhologist events in the end of the 20th and beginning of 21st century. So philosophical faculties of Buddhist monasteries in East Transbaikal region originated in 1828 when the first philosophical faculty in Sukul Datsan was opened. I have my presentation. I will read it today thanks to my teacher, Vanchikova Tsimtsing-Purpueva, the faculty of Buddhology. Lobsang Dandarov is a legendary person in the history of Buryat Buddhism, an extraordinary person of extraordinary skills and talents, who single-handedly created a Buddhist education system in Tsugul Datsan. I will not speak about the specific features, the canonic system, which was borrowed and calqued, how unique it is, uh, which turned into an independent system which preserved the core of Buddhist core education, thanks to this person in such a broad interaction with Buryat different families. And out of 46, 19 Datsans in the end of the 19th centuries were, well, the heads of them were graduates from Tsugul Datsan philosophical department. what Bazarev Andrei Alexandrovich has mentioned today, has spoken about, I will not repeat these ideas, but the succession in philosophical education was thanks to direct succession. Uh, Dildyrov, a great philosopher in 1812, 1863, um, there were first translations um, in this period, and this person had unique talents and skills. In his early years, he mastered Tibetan language and read Tibetan philosophic manuscripts. He was also a painter, a sculptor, and the first icons of Tugul Datsan were created thanks to his talent. In 1842, that is after 18 years after opening of the Datsan, he translated into Mongol language the first philosophical texts. I would also like to mention that in my article I have a list of Datsans and their heads, uh, whose teachers he was. Gansan uh, was another great philosopher. Galsan Jibatoguturov was not only a philosopher and historian of Buryat Buddhism, but also a person who carried out the chronicles, secular chronicles of Buryat society. He is the second prominent figure. Aginsky and Sgul's Datsan played an important role in developing Buddhist education in Russia. There are quite a few books devoted to this, about the teachers and their successors and how these connections were able to go beyond the close circle of Buddhist education in the 1870s up to 1930s. So in these 60 years a lot was done in Russian Buddhology education, and many lamas of Aginsky and Sugul Datsan were both disciples of prominent scholars and also the teachers of the next generation of prominent scholars. In the current situation, we will probably arrive to the common opinion on what the interaction of Buddhist canonic monastical education and secular education could be. I'm not sure about Buddhist education, probably Buddhologist education would be the right word. I see this forum as the ground for finding ways out of the insulation of one type of education and too general character of the other type of education. In 1924, there was created the Center for Buddhist Education, and many prominent actors and scholars in Buddhology, including Tsibikov, a very important ethnographer and explorer and the founder of many Tibetan monasteries. He wrote about Tibetan way of life and the monasteries and the way of life. They were the first professors of Transbaikal University. And I think it's no coincidence that before the foundation of for the promotion of Buddhist education, last year in November, in Aginsky Datsan and Aginsky Academy and Transbaikal University together held an inter-regional conference about the place and role of Buddhist educational institutions in Russia, past and present. We had many speakers, and we are very thankful on behalf of the President's Office of the university. We would like to express our gratitude to many researchers and speakers who with who secured who provided this high level of expertise at our forum. And today I would like to touch upon a very important issue. We do not only need educational programs promoting Buddhist and Buddhologist education. We also work on creating, designing master's program in Buddhism and invite visiting lecturers and inviting both secular and Buddhist academy teachers. We do it, yeah, we are working on this, but today I would like to draw attention to the social environment of Buddhism. So, Buddhism is not just canonic Buddhist education, institutionalization that is creating educational institutions, the monasteries of Datsan, but it's also the social environment, of course. First Aginsky Datsans were founded by the invitation of Buryat families. The first Sugul Datsan can be called a family Datsan of 3 families, almost. I do not remember them exactly, but probably lamas know them, that they were family Datsans. So it's very the relations with the community, with the lay people, is the guarantee of the stability of our culture and preserving the trust on the part of the community, on the society, is of high importance. When we were in Moscow in the university of the Friendship of People's University, we discussed it with our partners from Kalmykia, how authentic, how canonic the philosophical tradition of Buddhism should be in specific communities. Can we describe Buryat Buddhism, Aginsky Buddhism individually? But I should say that I should highlight, emphasize that the local environment is very important. Preserving local traditions, the knowledge, the awareness of the historic roots that inspire us to integrate, but also to preserve our own cultural codes. This is the way. When a Moscow State University professor spoke about Buddhist institutions in India, including Nalanda University, where we also participated in the conference about 20 years ago, uh, when Aginsky delegation arrived, we were actually inspired that our ancestors, about 250 years, could acquire this doctrine and could share it with the lay people back home. So we are very thankful today. We are unfortunately sorry about the fact that Transbaikal University was not invited to become a part of the consortium. I'm deeply sorry about this. I hope this will be changed maybe on Saturday and we can be included into the consortium, because Buddha taught not only compassion but also, while preserving the unique identity, we should also accept others since we share the common cultural code and cultural space. Thank you so much.
Извиниться.
I have to recognize my mistake. Yes, your university will be invited to the consortium in the nearest future. Sorry for this. And here, Unfortunately, we don't have much time left for all participants. We have a person from the Czech Republic, the Secretary Lamero Medala, the member of the observing committee. It was Peter. You are welcome to the stage. And Alexander Kaibalgarov with a presentation. Please welcome to the stage the Russian Association of Buddhist Tradition, Karma, Views, educational processes as well. Yes.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear noble friends, Dharma friends and colleagues from all around the world. Actually, we are very deeply thankful to be here at this noble event of sharing the Dharma, sharing the experiences with many as possible people. Thank you, dear organizers, to make it happen. Thanks you to bring all the things together, because this is what it's all about. Just to follow the Buddha's teachings in order to practice that, to bring the results, to bring the happiness and lasting values in our daily lives. A translation is happening? Oh. Yeah. And as you can see here at this noble picture is Lama Ole Nyudal and 17 Javakarmapa Thaya Dorje, so-called the Black Hat Lama, the first consciously incarnated Lama in Tibet 900 years ago. And actually, he is known as the living Buddha, somebody who's carrying the activity of all Buddhas of all times and directions, knowing somebody as Dusum Chempa, also knowing the 3 times. And actually, he was visiting us in Europe 1 week ago, not even 2 weeks ago, together, of course, with our precious Lama Ole Nyudal at the Europe Center, where 7,000 people came together in order to practice, to meditate, to get the teachings, to get empowerments, and be together in order to celebrate such a great moment as enjoying the Buddha Dharma, and of course reaching the timeless values and things that Buddha was sharing 2,500 years ago. And as you maybe know, Lama Ole Nyudal is well known in the West because he and his wife Hannah, 50 years ago, when they met 16 Java Karmapa, predecessor of 17 Karmapa, they asked him to go to the West and bring the Buddha's teachings in order to really bring so much possibilities and options to have a meaningful, rich, interesting life for all who's seeking for that. And actually, Lama Ole founded 600 centers in 60 countries in this world, with almost 20,000 practitioners doing that, including 80 centers in Russia. Sasha will talk about it soon. And basically, this is what we do and try to practice. As the main educational and main thing to do is so-called Mahamudra teaching, the teaching about the nature of mind, so-called Chakchen in Tibetan, or Great Seal. Basically, when we really focus on the nature of mind from the perspective of its possibilities, of its potential, of its power, compassion, love, kindness, in order to activate it, develop it, and bring it to one's own life, in order to really live that in a daily basis. Not only to talk about it, which is very important, we very much keep in connection with traditions, but essential thing is to bring it into daily life in order to fulfill it in daily situations. And out of the teachings, we also practice, because Diamond Way is very known as a practitioners. We are known as meditators. So really we transform all this experience, the knowledge into an experience to become inseparable part of ourselves. So it's not only the stays in the head, but it goes to our hearts, and we live like that. And then we bring into society, bring into our people, in order to inspire them, in order to be a good example on the level of daily life. So of course, as you maybe know, we don't wear noble robes like most of you. It's very good. We are bringing Buddhism into daily situation with people that have jobs, have works, have families, have responsibilities, they're being part of the middle of society, but still bringing certain qualities, certain overview, certain possibilities into daily life to really live the most meaningful Buddha message to carry over the sickness, old age, and death. So not to just live the life, but live it with the rich, full of potential and happiness. So this is a message of Lama Ole. He's doing for 50 years, together with Java Karmapa. And please, in his name, I would like to share and give his blessing, good wishes. May we all reach the timeless values and lasting happiness. May we all meet with the Buddha's great message. He's sending the greetings now from Europe because he couldn't come here, but he's all with us. He was very much invited several times for this kind of conference. So he's very thankful for organizer to pass on this message, really deeply thankful. The gratitude is here. And please, like Lama Ola used to say, don't forget, just be happy. Thank you, friends.
Спасибо, спасибо.
Thank you. Well, Peter Jevush is not only the secretary and trusted person, but in our tradition, he's a traveling teacher. So he briefly, it's impossible to convey briefly at Lama Wole and from Buddha to all the present. It will be a challenge, but I will try. So let me fix it. Can you help me, please? Okay. In our understanding, Buddhist education must prepare Buddha from a human being. All the rest, everything that is beyond, just can be called means or tools or instruments, because why people need Buddhism? More than thousands of years, it's a great concern of the humankind. And the example of Lama Wole and his wife Hana, that people from different cultures, charmed by Buddhist lamas, Tibetan lamas, came, got an assignment. Sorry, I need to show you the slides, but nothing happens. Can you help me with the remote control, please? Okay. And more than 600 centers across the globe, as it was mentioned above, more than 10,000 of practitioners across the globe. In Russia, there are more than 80 centers from Kaliningrad to Sakhalin across Russia, across the country, including Buryatia, Kalmykia, and Tuva. Of course, traditional Buddhism is presented here more, but nevertheless, what is the educational approach in our system? What is education in our system, and how to become Buddha? So the key point here, the most important thing in Vajrayana is fourth example, which organizes all examples, life examples of what Buddha is now, what kind of Buddha you can become now, and if he charms you, if you want to, be like him, then people follow him and start copy him, and it is very important to be open to his knowledge, to his power, to his teaching, and then he will give user practices, mantras, fields of power, and then a person starts practicing it. Traditional system of Tibetan Buddhism, which has been existed since the 12th century in all Tibetan schools, not only in Karma Kagyu. Nandra is practiced, and all questions are solved with Lama, and all the problems and obstacles that might occur are tackled through practice, we discussed with Lama, and the more you practice and the closer you observe Lama in a daily life, while traveling with him, which happen every year globally on the global scale, traveling with Lama. In winter, we have travels to. So actually, we have already had 32 winter tours so far. The most popular tours were with 500 participants. The whole train of people who traveled across Russia, visited Buddhist centers, visited the most significant places in Kalmykia, Buryatia, in Tuva, and all Buddhist places. And they actually got acquainted with Russia, with its culture, with its population and people, and were amazed by the prosperity of the country and people. And Peter now is here. He came here. He brought congratulations from 7,000 people from a big course where everybody is happy. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to show you any pictures because we had some problems with the presentation. But I hope I managed to convey the message, and I hope that I have managed to persuade you to be happy right now. Please smile. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexander. Lama Oli has also given me a lot of, has done a lot for educating people, since in Buddhism we have no limits for single ways of operating, of acting. Every individual has the right and opportunities to choose this or the other way of acting, direction of Buddhism. As Buddha himself says, his words should be seen and studied and perceived, and only then implemented. I think this is the approach we should follow. That people with different types of perceptions, we're all different here. A lot of people can perceive what is happening right now differently. And in accordance with this, as Buddha says, every tradition deserves respect. This is the way. Within the International Buddhist Forum, which is called Traditional Buddhism and Modern Challenges, we invited many people with different opinions, different points of view. We attempted at this panel to discuss the modern challenges. This is the time, the current time, where we have to decide what we can initiate that will be fruitful in the future. Which courses we can open. Many people mentioned bachelor programs, and many presenters spoke in favor of the education, in favor of the idea of Buddhist topics, that we need Buddhist disciplines, and this forum evidences that Buddhism is present in our society. People are interested in Buddhism, and beyond simply saying Buddhism, repeating Buddhism, Well, it's not enough. When we speak about Buddhist education, it brings the new light, the new prospects. When the person actually studies something in the frame of educational programs, so people get the right understanding of concepts. People can come to common interpretations, so we can avoid the differences in interpreting due to different traditions, which can be rejected by specific groups of people. When people understand the common background, the traditions of each group, they have mutual respect, and Buddhists overall will enjoy respect of other people because people will see Buddhists as people trying to get the deep understanding of Buddhist and be educated. I'm giving the floor to the moderator. Let me stand for the concluding remarks, dear friends and colleagues. We are finishing probably the longest panel of the forum. It was of high importance because, first and foremost, I think we have highlighted several main issues or several main things that we can observe. We have a very good understanding, mutual understanding. Huanen once said that in reality, there is no big chariot or small chariot, there is one chariot for all people. But when we make this difference, it's easier to understand Buddhism, it seems, when we separate it into branches and directions. Unfortunately, the time of the panel is limited. So we have to overcome the roadblocks that we face. And I'm happy that we have this free exchange of ideas and opinions. Let me thank everybody who expressed their opinions and shared their experience, your personal experience. As this is where education starts because not a single book can teach you Buddhism. Not a single video can teach you Buddhism. You can only be taught Buddhism by your teacher. And although we have all the modern technologies, you still have to find your teacher. We cannot avoid this. So let me thank all the teachers here who keep transmitting their experience to the successors. And we shouldn't force the believers, Buddhist believers, to study secular disciplines. It should be voluntary. They can do it on their own will. We have to understand that Buddhist philosophy and philosophy in general has so many directions and aspects that not everybody needs Chinese classical philosophy, German classical philosophy, but people should be able to choose. We have to offer such options. So both universities and Buddhist communities start cooperating, and this is important. Another important thing to finish with today is that next year we are starting new secular programs which are open for the clergy, including bachelor programs, master's programs. We have agreements on internships in China, India, Mongolia, and this is probably the first time of such a large scale of exchanging experience. Will have access to many approaches to international experience, and this is a huge breakthrough in teaching Buddhism. Um, I sincerely thank all the participants and guests, and as a moderator, I'm very thankful to all the workers of the foundation for the promotion of Buddhism who are here as well in this hall. I'll name them all individually because they have done huge work. Colleagues Shemakin, Vavilov, and in the back you can see Ekaterina Sensova, Olesya Sapožnikova, all the international guests who received visas. Uh, uh, these ladies' efforts made it possible. Thank you, everyone, dear colleagues. I'm thankful for the friendship that has had so many years. Thank you so much. Thank you, colleagues.